My guest today is Professor Christopher B. Lynch. Now, Dr. Lynch was one of the founding consultants of Milton Keynes Hospital, and he is a leading world authority in his field. He is also the inventor of a life-saving gynecological procedure, the B Lynch procedure.
Well, it's going back to, in fact, school days. When I was at school in West Africa in Sierra Leone, life was difficult for us until we got to the United Kingdom by scholarship and entered university, then trained in, I haven't left Oxford. And of course, difficulties arose because being a foreigner in a different country, especially from Africa, we had all the problems that you and I would expect. The lesson I've learned over time is how to cope with adversities. Life is never straightforward. Even if you're the brightest child or brightest pupil in your college or institution, you still have difficulties in the Western world. I can only speak of the United Kingdom because I've only lived here. I've lived here all my life, basically. And you meet some very kind people, you meet some very difficult people. The ability to cope with those problems is really the landmark of success.
Tell me a little about your invention, the B Lynch procedure, how it works, what it does.
Well, the B Lynch invention came about by what I call divine intervention. I was in bed, fast asleep, and my colleagues had difficulty in the hospital. I was called in to help with a lady who was having her first baby and had the baby and bled profusely. They transfused her over 15 pints of blood and they still could not stop the bleeding. So as a senior consultant, I was called to come and help. I arrived there, in fact, in my pajamas. Everybody thought I was a funny-looking chap coming to a theatre with pajamas and so on. I just put a gown over, went to the theatre and did what I had to do. From a dream that I had 6 months before, a patient was involved in a road traffic accident and bled quite a lot, and I used my pair of braces, the ones that I wear in my everyday life. So the thought came to me to use that philosophy or the technique involved in that by using suture material. So I used this suture material like braces and stopped the bleeding, and it looked like the uterus then looked like chicken for Christmas, you know, although you put it in that way, but in reality it stopped the bleeding and the patient survived. Otherwise would have died. Then I said to my colleague, we must look into this material and see why it worked. So we started monitoring other patients, went to the theatre at all hours to help others when this thing occurred, and it all worked. So I published it in the British Journal. At first, the British Journal were a bit reluctant to publish it. I don't know, because it was coming from me as a foreigner or something like that, but the fact of the matter is, other journals offered to do that, and the British Journal decided it will do it, because the major invention is the only operation that has been invented for the last 100 years in obstetrics. So it was a landmark and a tremendous milestone in the development of education and safe practice. So it worked. And today, there's over 4,000 women around the world that I know from feedback and the website that have benefited from the operation, whose lives have been saved, whose uterus have been conserved, and they've had babies after. The model I have here is simple, it's effective, and it's cheap. In training and educating doctors around the world as to how to apply the B Lynch operation. I go to different parts of the world, so it's easy to carry because it's made of wool, and it looks exactly like the uterus after a baby is born. You can see this patient, so to speak, has had a cesarean section. This is where the baby came out. So you assume that this woman is bleeding heavily and the womb has not contracted to stop the bleeding. So the doctor comes in after explaining and taking consent, if he can, to put the suture through and over the top, through the back, and into the cavity and outside. So the sum total of the effect is to clamp down the uterus, and if you squeeze it like that, the bleeding will stop. And this suture is short life, so it disappears in 21 days or thereabouts. So the patient can live a normal life, have another baby, and hopefully not run into the same difficulty next time.
Did you face obstacles that were particular to you as an African?
Well, when you go to interviews, they look at you, they say, oh, you know, the impression you get at the very first meeting at an interview is that you know nothing until proved otherwise. Of course, with my education and demure from where I was born and how I was brought up, my attitude was give your best and hope for the best, which I always do in interviews. And I developed such good rapport with the English or British people that I don't have any regrets as to how I stood my pace in these interviews and fortunately get appointed. And I must say I have been appointed to every position that I wish to because I use tactical skills. If I want a job, I go back and look for the last 2 years when that job was advertised and offered, meet the people who are in the job, discuss matters with them, go in there to work as a locum unpaid. So I have a feel of, is this a job I want? And would I be happy working with these people? I worked for 4 night bachelors in my career, which is the best you can ever hear from even a British person perhaps, let alone a foreigner like me. And these people who I've worked for have been very eminent in the profession. For example, my first job was Edward Tuckwell, who was the Queen's General Surgeon. The next one was Sir James Fraser, who was also an eminent professor in Edinburgh, chairman of the College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, as well as a leading professor in surgery. Then I worked for Sir Alec Turnbull in Oxford as his registrar. He was also a very eminent obstetrician gynaecologist, reading many books. And last but not least, I worked for Sir Marcus Setchell, who's the Queen's gynaecologist. I was his chief assistant. So working for these eminent professors and, you know, Queen's gynecologists is a great benefit to me and a great achievement, which I will never forget.
Are there opportunities for people of African descent to strengthen the position of Africa?
Yes, definitely. I do, for example, lead by example. I mean, I do network for West Africa and African countries. I do work for the WHO, the World Health Organization, as a commissioner. We've just written some report back which to look into women's health particularly and how to improve the quality of women's lives in Africa. A lot of Africans here should just look at the optimistic side of life, not live in a kind of dejected perspective of what life is. I know it's difficult, as I've explained to you, but press on. Know how to tiptoe through the tulips. Don't upset people unnecessarily. I think Africans should be more optimistic about life. There's so many avenues that you can pursue if you really have the determination. They always say there are 3 A's to success in any work of life. The first A, have the ability. The second A is be affable. Let people look at you, feel about you, and want you. And the third is, of course, be available. It's no point having all the education in the world and nobody can find you, or nobody can see, or you can't help anybody else. That is not going to help a successful career.
How do Africans stay relevant and succeed in this fast-moving, information-based society?
Well, Africans in general are very sort of intuitive and inquiring people. They have inquiring minds. What they need is discipline. The discipline is the most important part of anybody's life. Where set a target, aim for it, go for it, and achieve it. So there's no question, there's no doubt in my mind that Africans cannot succeed. Let me give you an example. When I first came to the UK, I was the only black person, or I'm the only foreigner to be in my medical school of 160 candidates. Today, there are a lot of Africans, a lot of Indians, etc. in medical school, so we are making progress. It's what you do with the end point of the progress that matters, and also the ability to pass on what you have achieved to the younger ones by mentoring. That is what Africans should be aiming at, not only achieving great heights, but the ability to mentor those who are less fortunate or who need the help. And that's what I do now. Well, I was invited the other day to speak in the International Cancer Research Institution, where they had a few Africans, Indians, and so on, as to how to develop research. And I gave them the example of the 3 A's that I've just said to you. And I offered to take small groups to mentor them, know where their problems are, and know how to assist with solutions. That's what mentoring is about. Mentoring is to lead by example, show the candidates the areas of potential success, and work on it. Give them the encouragement and the confidence that these targets are achievable.
There's a lot of talk about immigration at the moment. How do you think this impacts the African community?
Well, I try to keep out of things like the political side of life, like immigration and so on. If you got the credential to enter a country, then by all means you should. But in spite of all that, you expect to have obstacles. Because as I say, when people see you as a black person, the immediate impression is he's one of the asylum seekers. He's one of the ones who's going to scrounge on the state. But that is not true, because a lot of contributions have been made by black people in the UK in every walk of life. So I said to you, when I first came here, very few you will see in prominent positions, except cleaners and washing uppers and hoteliers and so on. But today, life has changed. You have black in parliament, you have black judges. My own cousin was the first black QC in the United Kingdom.
How can Africans contribute better to the development of the UK?
In all sort of work, be conscientious. Don't feel the obsessive business of being black or being African or whatever. You live in a country that needs you in terms of your own technological output. You should do that with all degree of conscientiousness. When I started Milton Keynes Hospital 25 years ago, I was one of 3 consultants. The other 2, one Scottish and one English, and myself. But we pulled together, we set up the hospital, and today it's a center of reasonable degree of excellence. I've made a major contribution, which everybody knows about in my retirement recently. I had eminent people from all over the world, from New Zealand, Australia, from Chicago, and all came to speak highly of my work in the hospital as well as internationally. So Africans have a great potential if they keep to the rules. Be yourself, be good, and go for it.
What is your favorite thing about living and working in the UK?
Well, I live in the UK because I married an English person. And with the family I have, UK is my home, so to speak. Although I don't ignore my country of origin, I always assist in networking, and I will continue to do so now. My country has given me the equivalent of a knighthood in this country. As the president in 2006 gave me the honor of the Grand Commanding Officer of the Republic of Sierra Leone, which you would say is the knighthood in the UK. I have the right to use the title, but I don't, because I don't want to feel any ostentatious factor about it. I'm just who I am. It's a person that matters, not the decorations.
And finally, what would be your advice to other aspiring Africans in the UK?
Don't get obsessional about your color or your country of origin. If you know your stuff, make sure you know it well. Make sure you know it better than a lot of others in your category. That will ensure you at least to get an interview. At the interview, your demeanor is very important. Don't go to an interview looking sloppy and unkempt and lack of personal care. Go there looking dignified. Speak clearly so that they understand and you're able to put your point across with modesty and sincerity. Let them see that this is the man for the job. And once you get a job, prove your proficiency in the job by, again, be aware that there are always other people better than you.